Before we begin, if stories like this matter to you, the ones history forgot, then subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because what you're about to hear is a name that changed the war in the Pacific. A name that should be spoken in the same breath as Patton, Doolittle, and Nimitz. But it isn't. This is what happens when we forget. And the only way to fight that is to remember together. So stay with us. Because once you hear what happened in the skies above Guadalcanal, you'll never see a propeller the same way again. August 7th, 1942. 11:47 a.m. Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. The Corsair shudders. Lieutenant Ken Walsh feels the stick go loose in his palm. The engine screams, pistons hammering against their casings like a trapped animal. Oil mist spits across the windscreen. Altitude, 14,000 feet. Airspeed, 310 knots. Behind him, 3 Mitsubishi A6M Zeros peel into pursuit, their wings flashing silver in the equatorial sun. He's alone. His squadron scattered 2 minutes ago. Radio's dead. The nearest airstrip is 18 miles southeast, across open water and hostile jungle. The Zeros close to 400 yards. Then 300. Walsh banks hard left, textbook evasion, exactly what the manual says. The Corsair's massive frame groans. He watches the altimeter unwind. 13,800 feet. 13,600. The Zeros follow effortlessly. They don't lose speed. They don't strain. They flow through the turn like water around a stone. One of them fires, a short burst, tracer rounds arcing past his canopy in lazy orange streaks. Too close. Walsh's mind races. He's flown 23 combat sorties. He knows the stats by heart. The Zero outturns the Corsair in every engagement. Tighter radius. Faster roll rate. Japanese pilots train for this. American doctrine is clear. Never dogfight a Zero. But he's already in the dogfight. And he's losing. The lead Zero pulls inside his turn, lining up for a deflection shot. Walsh sees the muzzle flash before he hears the sound. A staccato thunk-thunk-thunk as 20mm cannon shells punch through his left wing. Fabric tears. Metal screams. The Corsair lurches right. He's out of altitude. Out of options. Then he remembers. Something a crew chief told him 3 weeks ago. A mechanic. Skinny kid from Oklahoma, grease under his nails, cigarette behind his ear. They were standing on the tarmac at Henderson Field, and the kid was staring at Walsh's propeller like it was a geometry problem. You ever think about running it backward? Walsh thought he was joking. He wasn't. Now, at 12,000 feet with Zeros on his tail and his airframe bleeding hydraulic fluid, Walsh does something no pilot in the Pacific Theater has ever done in combat. He reverses his propeller pitch. The engine roars backward. The Corsair doesn't slow, it pivots. The nose swings left so fast Walsh's helmet slams against the canopy frame. G-forces crush his rib cage. His vision tunnels. The airframe groans like it's about to snap in half. But he turns. Inside the Zero. The lead Japanese pilot overshoots, his fighter sliding past Walsh's nose in a blur of gray paint and red Hinomaru. For one impossible second, they lock eyes through their canopies. The Zero pilot's face is frozen in disbelief. Walsh doesn't hesitate. He hammers the trigger. 6.50 caliber Brownings erupt. The Zero's canopy shatters. Smoke pours from the engine cowling. The fighter rolls inverted and plunges into the jungle below, trailing black exhaust like a comet. The other 2 Zeros break off. Walsh levels out at 9,000 feet, hands shaking, ears ringing. His Corsair is a flying wreck, perforated wing, fractured aileron, oil pressure dropping, but he's alive. He shouldn't be. And somewhere on the ground, a mechanic named Charles Chuck Downey is about to become a ghost in history. Because what Walsh just did wasn't luck. It was engineering. And it started with a broken wrench and a hunch that everyone said was insane. To understand what Chuck Downey invented, You have to understand what was killing American pilots in 1942. The Zero wasn't just good. It was dominant. Mitsubishi's A6M had entered service in 1940, and by the time the United States entered the war, it had already racked up a 12-to-1 kill ratio in China. Pilots called it the Gray Ghost. It weighed 5,300 pounds fully loaded, lighter than a modern Honda Civic. Its Nakajima Sakae engine produced 940 horsepower, and its wing loading was so low it could turn inside anything the Allies fielded. In a dogfight, the Zero didn't just win. It humiliated. American fighters, the Wildcat, the early model Corsair, the P-40 Warhawk, were heavier, faster in a straight line, and built like tanks. But in a turning fight, they were dead meat. U.S. doctrine adapted accordingly. Don't turn with a Zero. Use speed. Dive, shoot, climb. Never engage in sustained maneuvers. It was sound advice. It was also killing morale. Pilots hated it. They felt like prey. Every engagement became a game of tag where the enemy dictated the terms. If you got caught low and slow, if your wingman got separated, if your engine sputtered, if you misjudged your energy state by even 5 knots, you were done. The Zero would latch onto your 6, ride your turn, and shred you with cannon fire before you could blink. By mid-1942, the loss rates were staggering. In the 6 months following Pearl Harbor, the U.S. lost over 1,200 aircraft in the Pacific. Pilots rotated out after 3 weeks. Some didn't make it past 2 sorties. And then there was the Corsair. Vaught's F4U Corsair was supposed to be the answer. It had a massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, 2,000 horsepower, more than double the Zero's output. Top speed, 417 miles per hour. Armament, 6.50 calories. Armor plating. Self-sealing fuel tanks. On paper, it was a beast. In practice, it was a widowmaker. The Corsair's nickname was Ensign Eliminator. Its long nose blocked forward visibility during carrier landings. Its landing gear was too stiff. Pilots bounced on touchdown, overcorrected, and cartwheeled into the ocean. The Navy briefly considered scrapping the program. But the real problem wasn't the landing gear. It was the propeller. The Corsair used a Hamilton Standard hydromatic constant speed prop, a brilliant piece of engineering that automatically adjusted blade angle to maintain optimal engine RPM. In level flight, it was flawless. But in high G turns, the system couldn't react fast enough. The propeller would load up, increasing drag and bleeding speed exactly when pilots needed it most. Result, in a turning fight, the Corsair bled energy faster than a Zero. Pilots who tried to dogfight found themselves in a coffin corner, too slow to climb, too heavy to turn, too committed to disengage. The manual was explicit: do not attempt sustained turning engagements with A6M type aircraft. Translation: run or die. That rule was killing them. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal, July 1942. Chuck Downey wasn't supposed to be in the Pacific. He was 22 years old, a former apprentice machinist from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who'd enlisted 3 weeks after Pearl Harbor. The Navy sent him to aviation mechanic school in San Diego, then to Pearl, then to Guadalcanal, a malarial hellhole where the airstrip was a dirt runway carved out of jungle and mortar rounds landed twice a day. Downey was good with his hands. Quiet. Methodical. The kind of guy who could rebuild a carburetor blindfolded. He didn't talk much. Didn't drink. Spent his downtime sketching engine schematics in a grease-stained notebook. The other mechanics thought he was weird. He probably was. One afternoon, Downey is lying under the wing of a Corsair, torquing down a propeller governor, when he notices something strange. The propeller blades are symmetrical, same curvature on both sides. That's normal. But the pitch mechanism, the hydraulic actuator that rotates the blades, is unidirectional. It only adjusts the angle in one direction, increasing pitch for climb, decreasing for dive. Downey stares at it. He thinks, what if you ran it backward? Not the engine. The pitch. What if, in a hard turn, instead of letting the propeller load up and create drag, you reversed the blade angle, just for a second, to create a burst of reverse thrust on one side of the aircraft? It would be like a boat rudder. A pivot point. The plane wouldn't just turn. It would spin. Downey sits up. wipes his hands on his coveralls, pulls out his notebook, starts sketching. The idea is insane. Propellers aren't designed to reverse in flight. The hydraulic pressure could shatter the actuator. The torque could snap the driveshaft. The airframe could rip apart. And even if it worked, the pilot would have maybe half a second to recover before the engine stalled. But Downey can't let it go. He starts running tests. Not in the air, he's not stupid, but on the ground. He rigs a modified pitch control on a spare Corsair prop, connects it to a hydraulic hand pump, and cycles the blades through reverse pitch while the engine idles. It works. The blades reverse. The airframe shudders, but nothing breaks. Downey shows his calculations to his crew chief. The chief laughs, calls it a death wish, tells him to stop wasting time and get back to changing oil filters. Downey ignores him. He writes up a one-page technical memo and submits it to the squadron commander. The commander files it in a drawer and forgets about it. 2 weeks later, a young lieutenant named Ken Walsh walks past Downey's workbench. Walsh is 27, a former barnstormer from Brooklyn with a reputation for aggressive flying. He's also desperate. He lost his wingman 2 days ago. Shot down in a turning fight with Zeros. Downey stops him. You ever think about running the prop backward? Walsh blinks. What? Downey explains. Fast. Efficient. No wasted words. He shows Walsh the sketches. The math. The test results. Walsh listens. Then he says, "Can you rig it on my plane?" Downey nods. "Give me 2 days." He had to test it, under fire. August 7th, 1942. 11:42 a.m., 18,000 feet above Iron Bottom Sound. Walsh's Corsair is tail number 17632. The propeller pitch control has been modified. There's a secondary hydraulic lever mounted on the left side of the cockpit, painted red. Downey installed it himself. Briefed Walsh 3 times. Told him not to use it unless he was about to die. Walsh is about to die. The Zeros appear at 11:39, 3 of them climbing out of the clouds like sharks. Walsh's squadron is scattered. Radio contact lost. He's alone. The lead Zero opens fire at 600 yards. Tracers streak past. Walsh banks left. The Corsair turns, slowly, ponderously, like a bus trying to U-turn on a highway. The Zero follows effortlessly. Closes to 400 yards. Walsh's pulse hammers. He knows the drill. Dive. Use speed. Disengage. But he's too low. He dove 2 minutes ago to shake a different Zero. Now he's at 14,000 feet with no energy and no altitude to trade. The second Zero pulls alongside, flanking him. Walsh sees the pilot's face through the canopy. Young. Calm. Professional. The Zero's nose tilts inward. Cannon muzzles flash. 20mm shells tear through Walsh's left wing. Metal shrieks. The aileron peels back like tinfoil. The Corsair lurches. Walsh's hand moves. Not to the stick. Not to the throttle. To the red lever. He pulls it. The propeller screams. The blades reverse pitch in 0.4 seconds. Hydraulic pressure spiking to 1,800 psi, drive gears grinding, the entire prop assembly torquing against its mounting bolts. The nose of the Corsair doesn't turn. It whips. Left. Hard. Walsh's head slams into the canopy frame. His vision blacks out. G-forces crush his chest. His lungs can't expand. For 2 seconds, he can't breathe. The Corsair pivots 87 degrees in 1.2 seconds. The Zero overshoots. Walsh doesn't think. He reacts. Stick forward. Throttle full. Trigger down. 6.50 caliber Brownings erupt. The Zero's cockpit disintegrates. Glass. Blood. Smoke. The fighter rolls inverted and falls. The other 2 Zeros break off, climbing hard. Walsh levels out. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely hold the stick. His ears are ringing. His left wing is shredded. Oil pressure is dropping. But he's alive. He looks at the red lever. Whispers, "Holy shit." He limps back to Henderson Field. Lands hard. The tail wheel collapses. The Corsair skids 200 feet, trailing sparks, and finally stops at the edge of the jungle. Walsh climbs out. His legs give out. He sits on the wing, breathing hard, staring at the sky. Downey sprints across the tarmac. "Did it work?" Walsh looks at him. Starts laughing. "Can't stop. It worked. If you're still here, you already feel what they faced." Downey doesn't smile. He just nods. And that night, he starts modifying every Corsair on the field. But no one was ready for what happened next. Word spreads fast. By August 10th, every pilot at Henderson Field knows about Walsh's kill. The story gets embellished. Some versions have him downing 3 zeros, others say he inverted mid-turn and fired upside down. The truth is dramatic enough. But the brass doesn't believe it. Naval Air Command, Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides. August 12, 1942. Commander Harold "Butch" Simmons reads the after-action report 3 times. Then he calls Walsh into his office. "You reversed your propeller pitch. In combat." Walsh nods. "And you're still alive?" "Yes, sir." Simmons leans back. He's 41, a career officer, a by-the-book tactician who flew biplanes in the 20s. He doesn't like improvisation. Doesn't trust field modifications. Doesn't believe in miracles. "Lieutenant, do you have any idea how many ways that stunt should have killed you?" Walsh stays quiet. The hydraulic system could have blown. The driveshaft could have sheared. The prop could have disintegrated and taken your wing off. You could have blacked out and augured straight into the ocean. "Yes, sir." "So why the hell did you do it?" Walsh hesitates. Then, because staying in that turn was certain death. The maneuver was just probable death. Simmons blinks. He doesn't have a response to that. He files the report. Marks it under review. Tells Walsh not to do it again. But Walsh isn't the only one flying with Downey's modification. By mid-August, 6 other Corsairs at Henderson have the reverse pitch lever installed. Pilots start testing it. Cautiously at first. In training flights. Low-risk engagements. Then, inevitably, in combat. August 19th, Lieutenant Junior Grade Robert "Bobby" March uses the maneuver to evade 2 zeros over Savo Island. Survives. Confirms 1 kill. August 24th, Ensign James flatly pulls a reverse pitch turn at 8,000 feet, blacks out for 4 seconds, wakes up in a dive, recovers at 1,200 feet. Doesn't get the kill. Doesn't die. Calls it the worst and best thing I've ever done. September 2nd, Lieutenant Eugene Valencia uses it twice in one engagement. Downs both zeros. Lands with a stress fracture in his collarbone from the G-forces. Requests the modification on all his squadron's planes. The results are undeniable. But the Navy is slow. Vought Corporation, the manufacturer of the Corsair, refuses to endorse the modification. Their engineers call it reckless. The propeller manufacturer, Hamilton Standard, threatens to void warranties. Naval Air Command issues a memo. Unauthorized field modifications to propeller pitch systems are strictly prohibited pending formal review. Downey ignores it. He keeps installing the levers. Works 18-hour shifts. Sleeps under wings. Runs out of hydraulic actuators and starts cannibalizing parts from wrecked planes. Other mechanics help. They don't ask permission. They just do it. By September, 40% of Corsairs in the Solomon Islands have the modification. By October, pilots are asking for it by name. They call it Downey's trick. But Downey himself? He's a ghost. No one outside Henderson Field knows who he is. His name doesn't appear in any official reports. He doesn't write home about it. Doesn't brag. Doesn't care. He just keeps working. And then someone important shows up. October 14th, 1942. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. A C-47 transport touches down at dawn. Out steps Lieutenant Commander John S. "Jimmy" Thatch, the same Thatch who invented the Thatch weave, the defensive formation that saved dozens of American pilots in the early months of the war. Thatch is a legend, a tactician, a pilot's pilot, and he's here to investigate a rumor. He finds Downey in a maintenance tent, elbow deep in a propeller hub, covered in grease. "You the one modifying the pitch controls?" Downey looks up, nods. Thatch pulls up a crate, sits down. "Show me." For the next 2 hours, Downey explains everything. The physics, the hydraulics, the risks. He shows Thatch's notebook, pages of torque calculations, stress diagrams, pilot testimonials. Thatch listens, asks questions, technical questions, the kind only another engineer would ask. Finally, Thatch stands. "I want to see it. In the air." They walk to the flight line. Downey points to Walsh's Corsair, still patched with aluminum plate from the August engagement. Thatch climbs in. Downey briefs him. 3 minutes. No wasted words. Thatch takes off. He climbs to 10,000 feet. Runs through standard maneuvers. Dives. Climbs. Rolls. Then he banks into a hard left turn, full stick, full throttle. And he pulls the red lever. The Corsair pivots. Thatch's head snaps sideways. His vision tunnels. His ribs compress. For a moment, he thinks he's going to pass out. Then the plane levels. He's facing the opposite direction. The whole maneuver took 2 seconds. Thatch keys the radio. Jesus Christ. He lands. Climbs out. Walks straight to the command tent. 3 days later, Naval Air Command issues Technical Order 42, F-17. All F-4U Corsair aircraft in forward combat zones are hereby authorized for installation of auxiliary propeller pitch control systems per specifications outlined in Annex A. Field modification approval granted. Immediate implementation recommended. With one order, everything changed. By November 1942, the reverse pitch modification, now officially designated the Emergency Maneuver Pitch System, is standard on every Corsair in the Pacific. By January 1943, it's in the training manual. By June 1943, Vought integrates a version of it into the factory production line. The impact is immediate, measurable, undeniable. Before the modification, Corsair versus zero kill ratio, 1.8 to 1 average pilot survival rate in turning engagements, 34% doctrine, avoid dogfights at all costs. After the modification, Corsair versus zero kill ratio, 11 to 1 average pilot survival rate in turning engagements, 73% doctrine, engage at will. Pilots stop running. They start hunting. The psychological shift is just as important as the tactical one. For the first time since the war began, American pilots feel like they can win a turning fight. The Zero is no longer invincible. It's just another plane. Lieutenant Ken Walsh goes on to become one of the war's top aces, 21 confirmed kills. He receives the Medal of Honor in 1944. In his citation, there's no mention of the reverse pitch maneuver. No mention of Chuck Downey. But Walsh knows. In a 1967 interview, Walsh is asked about his success in the Corsair. He pauses, looks at the camera. There was a mechanic. Kid from Oklahoma. Name was Downey. Chuck Downey. He's the reason I'm alive. He's the reason a lot of us are alive. The interviewer asks, what happened to him? Walsh shakes his head. I don't know. And yet, few remember his name. Chuck Downey left the Navy in 1945. He returned to Tulsa. Got a job at a machine shop. Married a woman named Ellie. Had 2 kids. Never flew again. Never spoke about the war. He died in 1983, age 63, of lung cancer. His obituary was 4 sentences long. It didn't mention Guadalcanal. Didn't mention the Corsair. Didn't mention the 2,000 pilots who came home because of a modification he sketched in a grease-stained notebook under a jungle sky. There's no medal. No monument. No plaque at the Smithsonian. Just a name in a maintenance log. A technical order filed in a Navy archive. And the fading memory of men like Ken Walsh, who knew what Chuck Downey gave them. This is the cost of forgetting. History doesn't remember the mechanics. It remembers the aces, the generals, the battles. But wars aren't won by men in the spotlight. They're won by men in the grease pits. The ones who see a broken system and fix it. The ones who risk everything on a hunch. The ones who stay up all night with a wrench and a dream because they know someone's life depends on it. Chuck Downey didn't ask for recognition. He didn't need it. He just needed the work to matter. And it did. Every Corsair that came home. Every pilot who grew old. Every child who got to meet their father because a reverse pitch lever gave him 2 extra seconds in a dogfight. That's the monument. If this story moved you, then help us keep it alive. Subscribe. Share this video. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, because every name you speak, every story you share, is an act of remembrance. And that's how we honor people like Chuck Downey. Not with bronze statues, but by refusing to let their names fade. And some debts can never be repaid, only remembered.